I recently interviewed a couple of Mickey's bartenders, and I started by saying that it's difficult to find a business that's been harder hit by COVID than bars. Well, maybe not. When it comes to live event producers, many have had to shut down completely, while some have attempted virtual events with mixed results. Masterbeat is a name well known by gay men who like to dance and party, particularly in Los Angeles. They've been producing mega events for over, I think, 20 years, and their New Year's party is the go to Los Angeles dance event. It's normally held at the Vian in Los Angeles with thousands of attendees, but this year it's going to be held virtually. I have with me here today Brett Henrichsen. Brett is Mr. Masterbeat. He's the founder, owner, president. Not sure what his official title is, but you get the idea. Hello, Brett.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me, John.
No problem. So, my first question has got to be, how are you doing? Masterbeat was able to hold last year's New Year's event. I was actually there, which I'm sure you're thankful you're able to do, but you produce a lot of events for mostly major holidays like Martin Luther King, Labor Day, Memorial Day, Pride, President's Day, Halloween, and I probably missed some. That's a lot of events that you weren't able to produce. I think. Were you? What? How's your year been?
You're right. It's been a really rough year. I wish we could flash back to this time last year when we didn't know that any of this was happening and be back a year ago. The last event that we actually produced was a Masterbeat event in Los Angeles was President's Day. That happened probably just a few weeks before we entered the Twilight Zone. And we also had events at Winter Party in March, which was just literally the weekend that everything was starting to come crashing down and they were trying to decide whether to cancel it or not. So, and that was the last event we had. And then, yes, we've watched our Memorial Day, Pride in New York, Pride in Los Angeles, Labor Day, Halloween. We've watched all of those things sadly get canceled. It's sad looking back on the year, talking to venues and DJs. Well, surely we'll be back in business by Pride, right? Yes, or Labor Day, and then we never dreamed Halloween, and then now to have lost New Year's. What was so sad about Halloween is this was like all the stars aligning this year. Halloween was on a Saturday night. It was a full moon. We had the largest club in New York, Terminal 5, reserved for us. We had Able, so it was going to be like, the gay holiday to end all gay holidays, and then it was canceled. And then we thought, well, surely we'll be able to have New Year's. And when things started opening up a little bit, it looked like maybe we would be able to have it, not in California, but possibly somewhere else. And then, as you know, the pandemic started getting worse and spiking. And while there are a few states we probably could have moved it to, it just became the right conscious decision to still have it. I couldn't. New Year's Eve is our signature event. It was actually Masterbeat's first dance event. As you probably remember, we were a CD and music company and started doing Masterbeat New Year's in 1999 for the Millennium was the first real big Masterbeat event besides some little things at the Probe. And so I'm like, this is our signature event. We can't just not have it. So we decided to do it virtually. And the countdown, which is something that everybody looks forward to. We're getting hundreds of texts and emails and Facebook messages every day for a couple months. Where is it going to be? Where do we see the countdown? So I thought, well, we'll do one last big virtual party and make it be the blowout of all virtual parties with 27 DJs and 40 hours of music.
So you're not just an event producer, at least I don't think at heart. I mean, DJing has been DJing, music producing, as you mentioned, has been a big part of your career. And last year you DJ'd an event that you billed as your last DJ gig. What made you decide to give that up, and any change of heart?
It's true. It's kind of been a roller coaster of how all of how Masterbeat has been. It was started as a music company merely out of my love for music and loving dance music, and wanting to be able to buy it and take it home. And that started the CDs. And then the event started as a way to promote the CDs. And then the DJing started as a way to DJ what I wanted to hear at the party. So they kind of all fed into each other. And then the reason I chose this last year to be kind of my last DJ gig was it was 20 years to the date of my first DJ gig. I DJ'd my first Masterbeat New Year's in 2000. And over the last 10 years or so, my signature event that I love the most has been the closing party of New Year's weekend, the last event, not New Year's Eve itself, but usually New Year's Day night. And so this last year, since it was the 20 years to the date, and the scene has changed so much, DJing has changed so much. You know, it used to be that we were DJing I remember back in the 2000s, we were somewhere every single Saturday night. There was one year where I think I had one weekend off. And now clubs are kind of going away, and it's just special events, and the scene has changed so much. I've moved to Utah to be close to family and relax. I'm like, you know what, this 20-year mark is a really nice time to kind of make that cut and move on to other things and still do the events, but maybe start producing music, kind of pass the baton on to this new generation that's coming up. And who knew that 3 months later all of this would happen. And so it was kind of a good time. I do think that I will be like Cher and have several return tours and come back. And actually, it's nice to have this virtual event coming up because now I'm going to still play the closing party of the virtual event like I used to. So,
Yeah, I still, when I think of you DJing, I still think of the San Diego Zoo Party. That was always one of my
yeah,
my favorite
2002
events.
or 3, I think I played that.
Yeah. So I think I probably already know the answer to this question, but how are DJs holding up in general in these times?
I think everybody is really struggling. No, like I said, no one dreamed that this would last this long, and everyone has kind of been doing what they can to reinvent. And it's been interesting to see which DJs are still keeping their brand alive, keeping themselves alive, doing streaming. There's some DJs that we're featuring on our virtual parties that we've never used before that I was attracted to because they've been DJing every single week. They've been doing a Twitch event, and you can tell the people who are really passionate about it are still pouring their heart and soul into being a DJ, even for people to just watch and not be a paid gig. I think everybody's just holding on, and I've seen a lot of my colleagues, are getting jobs that they've never had to do before, driving for Lyft and Uber or whatever they can do to stay afloat, because it's truly the hardest hit business in the world. There's nothing like live events, and it's been frustrating as bill collectors and other things, when things started opening again in the summer, everything's back open again, and it's like, no, it's not. There's a whole entire industry that is still closed, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. This past Memorial Day, you held a fundraiser to benefit One World Foundation. Tell us about One World.
So One World is a foundation that we started for World Pride as a charity to donate funds back to the community and back to Pride organizations, and so we used it for Memorial Day because that was our first big event that was canceled because of COVID, and I wanted to do something for all these people who were hurting, all of the artists and bartenders and DJs and performers. So we did a weekend long event where people could donate to this One World Foundation, and we raised just shy of $20,000. We gave all of it back out. I didn't keep a cent. Masterbeat didn't keep anything. We donated out to about 50 or 60 DJs and performers who applied for the grant to help them with their loss of income, and it was great. It was very successful. So we're going to bring something back like that, similar, for this New Year's, and donate back out to the artists and DJs who are donating their time to the New Year's event.
And I'll be sure to put something about that on GNLA as well. And I think you said there'll be something in the Masterbeat website also.
Yeah, so it'll launch next week. There'll be, in addition to the ticketing aspect and the attending the parties of the virtual parties, there'll be a whole donation component that's going up to donate to One World and to those DJs, along with a contest where people can, when they donate, they're going to be entered into the contest to win some prizes back out of that. So we try to make it fun and worthwhile to donate to.
Yeah, so you've got a few online events under your belt now. This New Year's is not going to be your first. I know you've had a few earlier this year, so you've got a little practice for New Year's.
Yeah.
What have the biggest challenges been when producing a virtual versus a live event? There's the obvious things that you don't have to worry about that you would with a live event, like, booking the actual venue, paying for the on-site personnel, like the sound, the lighting, the bartender, security, and all that. But I'm sure there's some interesting tasks and expensive that you probably didn't think of, and we probably would never think of that you've got to deal with. What have been the challenges?
It's funny you say that because, unfortunately, it's. I think this is probably our fourth or fifth virtual event. We did Memorial Day, a little something for Pride, and then Labor Day and Halloween. And yeah, learning about everything behind the scenes that needs to happen to make it work because what we've been trying to do with our virtual events is have them visible sometimes on Facebook, Google, Twitch, Zoom, and having all of those components talk to each other coming from one feed. And then there's the ticketing aspect where we're selling tickets to attend the Zoom party, which isn't really a platform that's supposed to have been monetized that way. So there's a virtual holding room where people are kind of left out in the lobby where we have to let them in. So it's kind of like we still have a box office. And for Labor Day, some of the DJ sets were live coming in, some were pre-recorded, getting those coming from different places. And there'd be a moment where it was literally, 2 minutes before the show was supposed to be starting, and some of the connections weren't working and somebody wasn't in the room, and one DJ, and I remember laughing to Nina Flowers and to Alexander saying, "Oh my God, this is exactly like a live event. Like I'm running around saying, are we ready to open the doors? Yeah, why? There are people outside waiting to get in and nothing's ready." And so we were laughing that it was every bit as stressful as a real event
So,
in a different way.
so it actually is Zoom, right? Is it Zoom that you use for the platform?
Yes, Zoom is the what's funny is we didn't really use Zoom very well the first event for Memorial Day because I had seen that there were a lot of virtual events happening on Zoom, and they were really just a feed in the corner, and then everybody dancing and sharing what's happening in their room and on camera. And at first, since I wasn't used to virtual events, I was like, well, this seems kind of weird. People just want to log on to Zoom and watch each other dance. And so for our Memorial Day event, we did the opposite. We went in the other extreme and we produced 3 days and nights of highly produced. Every single second was produced with artists and visuals and photos and live performances. And it was basically like you were watching a live show, a telecast or a special, benefit the entire time. And then the people who were in the Zoom room were kind of bummed, saying, this is all that's going to happen in Zoom. They wanted that interaction of someone spotlighting them. And so then I learned, okay, they actually don't really care about watching a live performance or the DJ. They want to watch each other. It was bringing each other together, and they all wanted to be included, so that even though we can't be together physically, everyone is coming together virtually. So I learned that the Zoom aspect was a huge part of it. So now we've kind of changed course over the last few virtual events where there's some produced moments, some performances, some things that you can see, and then we're spotlighting and going back and forth between Zoom and everybody who's partying with you all over the world in their bedroom or their living room and having their own little private parties. And that's what people love seeing, is that they're live with the DJ and they're live with all these other people. And then we added a fun little aspect to Labor Day where, like a true circuit party, we added a dark room and a back room where you can get let into the dark room, and there's some uncensored things happening in there. And just like the live parties, that's where they want to be, is in the dark room.
That's funny. So basically it's a combination of some pre-recorded DJ sets, and there's the live aspect of Zoom that we all know about, where you can cut between, I guess, looking at other people who are attending. And
Yeah.
is there like for lack of a better word, like a VJ, like somebody on your end who's kind of doing the pinning and unpinning, or whatever you want to call
Yep.
it?
So just like a live event where we have someone running sound and lights, we actually have some people in the back who are moderating the room and who are watching who's coming in, and we can see a huge grid of everybody who's in the party, and we'll spotlight people. There's people doing some fun things here and there, so we'll spotlight them. So yes, it's kind of being moderated, the entire party, where we're switching between watching people. And when you're in Zoom, you can actually choose to watch our feed, which would be the DJ or the performer, watch the feed of everybody that we're spotlighting, or do what you want. It's kind of a cool platform for that.
And do you have the dancers?
Yes, there's dancers. And of course, we have go-go dancers. One of the fun things we did for Memorial Day is, because of COVID and social distancing, we had one go-go dancer here. And I had seen something in Lady Gaga's special where one of the performers superimposed himself. He came out playing one instrument, and then in the middle of the same song, he appeared again playing it. And it was like, wow, there's four of them. So we did the same thing with the go-go dancers. We have one go-go dancer, and he's appearing everywhere dancing.
So for those of us who haven't been through this, like, purchasing of the ticket experience, so when we go online, we pay for our virtual tickets. Then how does that work? Do we get some kind of an email with a link to get into Zoom, or how do you stop people who haven't paid from getting you? Like,
so that was an interesting.
How does that work?
that was an interesting problem that we had to solve for Labor Day. In that Zoom, once you have the link, then anybody can get into the Zoom room unless you make it a private party. And then our moderators figured out, well, we can't really use someone's name because, if it's John or Brett, how do we know that there's not 7 Johns and Bretts and they're already in the room, and which one's the right one? So we came up with a unique solution of randomly assigning everyone a 2-word name when they buy their ticket that's unique and generated, and only that only exists once. So it can be, Hung Fairy and Pink Princess and fun things like that. And that's your 2-word name. And then you log into Zoom with that name. And then we see you in the room, and the system knows, okay, that person is bought a ticket, and they get into the room.
Got it.
So that's how that works.
So let's talk about the specifics of the New Year's event. I believe it's multiple days, right?
Yeah, so what we're going to do to make this really special is since we had done quite a few virtual events already, and people are used to them, and some people are tired of them, and it was like, how do we make, since New Year's is such a momentous occasion, and something that everybody celebrates, and it's also our signature event, how could I make it different? So I decided to, rather than just have a handful of DJs that we've been using, or our residents, or you would typically expect, this being virtual gave me the opportunity to reach out to every single DJ who's been a big part of Masterbeat over the years. Our legends, DJs like Manny Lehman, Abel, Ralphie Rosario, DJs who may not have played with us for a while, but were our residents all through the 2000s and who are legendary, as well as our residents, as well as a bunch of guest DJs that we may not have ever had play Masterbeat before, but that we would love to have. So it gave us this opportunity to have, we literally have 27 DJs that are going to be a part of the weekend. And we're going to divide that up into New Year's Eve, which will be kind of the main event and kind of a typical 6-hour, 7-hour circuit party with our countdown to midnight. And then what we're going to do New Year's Day is literally have a 24-hour, all day long dance party. So New Year's Day will be DJs all day long. And then we'll end, that's Friday, and then we'll end on Saturday night with a closing party, which will be our typical closing party. So you can get a ticket to just New Year's Eve, or you can get a weekend pass that includes the whole thing. And then if you really want to go all out, you can get a VIP ticket, which gets you downloads to everything. So you'll get access to the parties, and you'll be able to download the video, the audio, the DJ sets of every single DJ from the weekend, and have those in the future.
And then does the pricing change between now and the event? Today's the 23rd of December.
It's one price now until the 30th.
Okay.
And then it goes up last time.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you very much. That's quite a bit. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having it.
No problem. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I know this is, very busy time. We're only a week away. A week and one day, I think we were talking earlier from the event. And hopefully we'll start to see some live ones in the not too.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm hoping that very soon. I have somebody here. Were you trying to say hi? Logan, come here.
Yeah, my
This is
dog
the
was
actual
scratching at the door
producer.
earlier.
This is the actual producer of the Masterbeat events. Yeah.
What's your dog's name?
His name is Logan.
Logan. We'll keep Logan.
Yeah,
in
and
mind.
everyone knows he's in charge because they actually see him at the end of the credits of every party and every countdown video. So
Well, thanks a lot. And don't forget, if it's a holiday weekend, it's time to Masterbeat. We'll see you next time.